What's up, guys? This is your SoCal fishing forecast for Thursday, August 12th. Welcome to the Chasing Pelagics channel, bringing you the latest, greatest information off the water every Thursday and getting your gear in the right shape and your boat pointed in the right direction, getting you ready for those trips. And yeah, let's get into it. Quick weather. It's looking stable right now. But we did have a little bit of extra tropical activity this morning that was pretty unexpected for most people. The thunderstorms are supposed to stay on the other side of the mountain, and lo and behold, we had thunderstorms overnight. We had a funnel cloud over the Coronado Bridge today, so a little extra 25, 30 knots this morning got people a little unprepared for what they were seeing. So always take a quick look at the conditions before you head out. And that's why I like to utilize web pages like 17foot.com. As a reminder, all of our sources that we use for information are sourced in the credits, just so you can find them and check them out yourself. But cool thing about 17foot.com, not only do they list all of the buoys, but you can actually see the current wind conditions at each buoy. You can see the swell direction, swell forecast, tides, wind, cloud cover, tropical activity, and the current marine conditions both near shore and offshore. So really good, helpful website where you can find a lot of information all in one place, and it's free $99, best price there is. So make sure you check that out. Let's take a look at our wind forecast. Unfortunately, this thing was not accurate this morning, so it looks to be close to accurate right now. A little bit onshore, a little bit from the south. But overall conditions are looking pretty good for the next few days. Very, very light winds and nothing too meaningful. I would possibly expect some more of this tropical humid cloud cover, though. That does not seem like that's going to go away here shortly at all with the activity that we got going on down south. And as we roll into Sunday here, Monday we start to fade into a little bit of an eddy condition. It seems light and insignificant, but we'll see what happens as things go on here in the week. But just to take a quick look at the big picture here, we do have some tropical activity down south, and as you can kind of see how these things form out, first of all, hurricane's dying off here. It's going to bring a little bit of south swell to us, nothing overly concerning, and then it dies out. We got a bigger one behind it, but looks like we're just going to have some south swell. And then this thing starts heading west, so that swell is going to turn off here pretty quick if it lives up to these conditions. But we'll see what happens. I don't trust anything more than 24 hours out on these wind charts typically, but usually they are pretty accurate. Let's take a look at the charts. We're using tempbreak.com here just for a quick reference. There's a cool little feature here where you can select specific points in time if you want to look at charts. So, 8:35 p.m. on the 10th was not so great, but 4 o'clock was actually a pretty good view. And we're actually going to end up using this view a little bit here so you can kind of get an idea of water temps, because unfortunately the 8-day composite chart is not very helpful. And we are going to use the 8-day chloro chart just so you can kind of see this continuous pattern here. We got some greener water. What was starting to become a red tide is faded out in Newport Beach area, so that water is looking a lot better than what it did last week, which is great news. Further down south, we still got some green water going on here. Doesn't really seem to be affecting the bite too much, but as we mentioned before, these fish that were over here in the 178.9 mile 2 weeks ago, these fish have moved on, and it appears that they slid up for a while, and then today things kind of turned. Whether that be just an offshoot from the weather. There's an old saying, the wind blows from the south, they don't open their mouth. Sometimes that happens with the Yeti. Today was a tropical activity event. Whether that stays or not, we'll see. But sometimes these things just need a day or two to reorganize. And then they turn right back on again. So we'll see what happens here. Let's get back to that fourth chart here. Boom, that's the one I'm going to use. All right. So as we have mentioned, there's been a lot of coastal tuna activity running up and down the canyon here. Starting 2 weeks ago along the 9, running up the canyon. Then they split. Some are following this chain coming right off Catalina from the 312 up the 152 up the slide up to the front of Avalon. And then we had some coastal activity following the ridge here, all the way up to the platforms, 14 Mile Bank, 267, all those areas pretty much filled with tuna and bait the entire week. And today that changed a little bit. Was not a lot of activity on the water, whether people just didn't see them because there was some bump on the water and we got spoiled with glassy conditions over the last week, or they really just didn't want to be up on top whatsoever and maybe moved on a little bit. But I find that unlikely because there's so much bait in the water that I don't think they're going to go very far. But let's start off with the bite up north. We've been seeing tuna up here, Newport, platforms, 14 Mile, all over the weekend. There's fish all up in here, even the Avalon Bank. Catalina, we've had guys fishing the island for yellowtail on the east end of the island, and tuna are popping up all over it. And they've been seen from the quarry on the front side all the way to Long Point. And they've been really close to the island and been popping up when guys are anchored in 100 feet of water. So I expect that portion to actually continue. I don't see that fading away. These are smaller grade fish. They're in like the 30-pound size. There's actually been some decent little bit of yellowtail fishing going on at the east end of the island as well. So glad to see that that's kind of picking up. All of these fish are being caught on sardine fly line, 20, 30-pound test. Nothing heavier or you're not going to get bit. Small size hooks, I'd recommend number 2s or maybe a 1-aught. But yeah, you're going to need to hide that hook as much as possible. They were a little bit shy. Let's talk about Sacramento Island. The island has turned on over the weekend, and there's been good fishing in the Pyramid Cove area and a little bit on the south end of the front side from White Rock South. Pyramid has been really finicky. We've had current running down the island, downhill coming off the island, and then a current coming this way. And depending on where you are lined up on Pyramid Head, depends on whether you're going to get bit. This weekend, we thought we were lined up on the right spot, and we were about 50 yards off. And the boat next to us was catching them on gray light, and we didn't catch anything there. However, over here at China Point, there was little to no current, and there's a pile of fish, and they bit really well. So really the island's just been really finicky this year. Everything was caught on fly line sardine for the most part. Did catch them on the yo-yo when they didn't want to bite on the surface. After a while, they kind of slow down. Fish the yo-yo, got bit on the yo-yo, and then when they're on the surface, you can catch them on surface iron too. So all seemed really fun. They didn't seem to be too line shy here whatsoever. But I'm really curious what's going on at the dunes, and no one has really looked at this the last couple of days. I'm curious. There were some really big fish here, and I don't know who's been looking at it or hasn't been looking at it, but it doesn't seem like anybody's really been looking at it whatsoever. I will tell you that there has been a lot of San Diego boats fishing San Clemente Island because the tuna have been really finicky, and we'll get into that later on. Let's talk about Tanner and Cortez. There's also some fishing going on out here, and I'll tell you that there is yellowtail at both Tanner and Cortez. Cortez did have a lot of bonito on it. These fish are being caught on 20 to 25-pound test, occasionally 30-pound tests, but it's really hard to get a bite. Number 2 hooks or smaller, you can maybe try a number 4, but I bent a hook on a number 2, so on 20-pound test. So just be careful. You're going to have to work through a lot of bonito to get to the yellows. And there is some smaller grade schoolie bluefin out here on Cortez also. Not in a lot of numbers yet. They haven't really shown up in a lot of numbers, but they are there. And we did get a few while we are on the anchor, if that tells you anything. So be on the lookout for that. All right, let's talk about the tuna game. There's been a variety of fish over the past week being caught really close to shore. And these fish are from 20 to 60 pounds. There is a couple Jimbos mixed in here. I will tell you, I didn't really see them on my trip over the weekend whatsoever. Uh, a ton of foamers everywhere. A lot of the schooly size stuff, they're really shy and they're stuck on that micro anchovy. There's a ton of it out there, and you're gonna have to have a really good chance of luck to get them to pay attention to you and come off that. And if you think you're gonna drive up on every foamer and cast into them and hook one, uh, you'd be right 1 out of 100 times. That's about what your odds are right now. A lot of guys driving over this stuff, and it wasn't playing, and they didn't want anything to do with the jig. What is working? Let's talk about what's working during the daytime. Uh, yes, there has been an occasional sport boat that popped up on the right school. They hung 30, made their whole day at the last minute at the buzzer. There's a lot of boats that didn't hit it whatsoever, only got a couple fish. And most of those captains have given up on fishing this stuff and having customers that didn't have a good day of fishing and taking them over to San Clemente to do some yellowtail fishing instead, or going out to Tanner or Cortez. No one is really fishing in Mexican waters right now. And I don't know if it's just because it's green and they don't want to drive that far south, which seems like most of the stuff is way down here below Ensenada, or what the situation is, but no one is really fishing anything down here whatsoever. There was a couple yellows caught at Coronado. They're on the smaller side. They were on the North Island, the 10 to 20 pound stuff. There's some sea lions in there too. And you're going to use some tactics like slow trolling sardines or mackerel to kind of track them down and find them, or maybe occasional bird school. But the daytime tuna action, for the most part, aside from a couple of boats that got a good school to participate, was generally speaking rather poor if you're on a sport boat. Now, if you're on a private boat, you have a little bit of a chance if you have a lot of patience and a little self-control by driving slowly up to these foamers, being in the right position, potentially shutting your engine off, and letting them come to you to make a cast on them and try and get them that way. Generally speaking, most people that are driving 50 miles an hour at them drive right to them, they sink out, and they wonder what happened, and then they sit there for 10 minutes, and then they pop up 100 yards away, chase the same school for the same results over and over and over again. So to really get after this stuff, you're just going to have some patience, make some good casts, take your time, try and get away from the boats that are out there and spread yourselves out. Also, let them have a chance to try and work the area that they're working. There has been some guys that have had some success finding those big schools of foamers. And if they sink out, just soak a bait for a really long time. And some of that plunker bite has been working, and guys have been catching fish that way. But it takes some time, some dedication to sitting and waiting in that area and letting that stuff come to you. Thinking that you're going to go up and scoop them up every time is not happening very often. Like I said, you have a better chance if you're in a private boat than a sport boat. A lot smaller boat, a lot less noise, less shadow that you're casting around these bait balls. But that's kind of what's been going on here. Now, the night bite has been working. The varying success has come from different boats. And I would just say you need to have a variety of jigs to work with. A couple weeks ago, when I was over at San Clemente, they wanted the bigger 200-gram knife jigs, red and white candy cane. That's what they wanted. This trip, they did eat a smaller candy cane jig, but they didn't want a big one. They went back and they wanted that Daiwa SK Silver Glow Dot jig. I found that jig to be working pretty well this year. We had one stop. I let a buddy borrow one, and we both hooked one. He broke my jig off, which happens, and I picked one up myself. So that was working. We did get one on the flat fall also. But if you're willing to stick the stuff out at nighttime and drive around and drop jigs, that has been effective. But for the most part, there's a large volume of fish in this area. Today, it seemed like the stuff that was down here between the 312, 209, and inshore, you guys are seeing as close as 2 miles to the boobies at St. Onofre in this area. And so it seems like a lot of this stuff has slid west. And I'd be following more of the edge of the slide from the 277 up to the east end and looking that way. And I will tell you that there is fishing here mixed in between the 289 and the 181 as well, even up to the macro bank. There's not a lot of volume, but it is there. And if you take your time, you're going to have the place to yourself for the most part. Not a lot of boats traveling through this area. So pick out a little couple miles of space for yourself and see what you can do with it and make the best of it. But yeah, other than that, we do have the frequent flyers back in stock on our website. Make sure you check it out if that's what you're interested in. We got those available again. We had a limited quantity here for about the next month until we get the rest of our supply in. And then hopefully we can be restocking all of our local tackle shops and getting everyone else back stacked up. So enjoy your week out there on the water, guys. Take care. Cheers. If you like what you saw today, you can subscribe to our channel or follow us along on Instagram and Facebook. And always remember, share the stoke.